Welcome to Inspiring Possible. I'm Christy Pennison, former stuck person turned therapist and dream consultant. Are you feeling stuck, overwhelmed, uncertain, or just need a little inspiration? Then I want to help you gain the clarity, confidence, and courage to create possibilities and live a life you love. Because, folks, life's too short to be miserable. Hello and welcome back to another episode. I'm so excited that you are listening today. This year is just flying by. I cannot believe that we are just creeping closer and closer to mid-year, which is crazy to say. But guys, it's happening. And life flies by a lot quicker than sometimes we think. Sometimes you just wake up and you're like, oh, which is why it's important to figure out ways to live fully and live a life that feels aligned, which is what we're all about here on Inspiring Possible. And so today is no different because y'all know one of the things I like to do is not only do I like to talk, but I like to talk with cool people. And hopefully, as you are listening, since we can't talk to you, then you are walking away with some things that will be valuable for your life. But maybe you have been in a situation like I have before where you maybe are feeling stuck, or maybe you're burnt out in your position, or you just feel like there's all these expectations on you, and you really just want to figure out how you can move into a different, maybe it could be a different job, a different career, a different industry, something completely different. It could be even like maybe you're volunteering for something and you're like, I don't know if this volunteering gig is feeling the way it used to, and I want to make a change. So if this is you and you're like, I think I'm ready, but I have a lot of fear holding me back, then stay tuned because the guest that I have today is really going to speak a little bit to that, because it's something that I think we all at some point in our journey have experienced. And so I'm super excited to welcome to the show a friend that I have that actually we haven't connected over the past few years, but she was reached out to me earlier this year talking about this goal group that we had did several years ago. So for those of y'all listening, I used to, and I really need to bring it back, do these maybe once a year goal setting webinars where I just invite whoever to come on and we'd sit and we would talk about what are some things that maybe you would like to pivot in your life. And it really started with an assessment of how do you feel like these different areas of your life are going, and then what are some things that maybe you would like to see different. And so me and Meagan West were talking because she's done a lot of pivoting in her life, I think, honestly, since that goal setting group. I mean, she was already thriving in her career and doing incredible things, but I think there was some things that maybe brought to life some ideas or some passions and pursuits. And so she's a sought after speaker, trainer, and leadership coach, and she is going to help us maybe with our mindsets today about how things might be possible for you. So welcome, Meagan.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to come full circle with you and talk to your people about what it is you do and what it is that I do and how aligned they really are.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit, because I know that's just the point of origin. I can think about how this whole episode came to be today. What do you remember about Megan? And what was that, 4 years ago, 5 years? It probably was even longer than I give it credit for, maybe even six. I don't know.
Yeah. I think it was during COVID. We were
Okay,
all
probably so.
full and finding things to do to keep momentum going. And so I think it was the beginning of the year and it was what, dream it, write it, do it or something, I think
Yeah,
was the
that's it. And
tagline.
there's still the workbook on the website if anybody wants to go check it out, what we're talking about.
Yeah, so it was great. I honestly was like, I am just gonna join this to support a friend. Um, didn't think I was gonna walk away with anything, but in life you have to go into rooms and conversations thinking that you can get something out of it. And so I participated fully with the activities and did my homework, did what we were supposed to do, and it's so wild because, I'm a note taker and I was going back through those notes as I was reorganizing my office and came across them and looked at them from what, 5, 6 years ago, and I'm like, "Wow, this really happened. We really did dream it, write it, do it." And so I thought it was so important to come back to you of how it came to fruition and that, it really is a good thing that what you have going, and I think others need to do it. So I'm gonna hold you accountable to bring that back because I think it's sprinkling a lot of good information for people out there.
Okay, well, let's talk a little bit about your story. Maybe you can kind of start wherever you want because I know that for a long time you worked in an executive role as HR and leadership development, but there's been a lot of pivots you made. So maybe we can talk a little bit about your story and some of the pivots that you might have made over this past several years. And what were the things that you had to do to get to where you are now?
Okay, this is excellent. So I fell into HR, and a lot of people say that they either fell into HR or they're trying to get into HR, but I was on that side where I just fell into it. And it was just the first job I kind of scooped up. And when you start doing something, you do it like really well, then like they want you to keep doing it or they want to add to it or somebody else wants you. So I fell into it and kept doing it and realized that okay, I really do love what I do because I do love people and I do love helping them in the workplace. And so it's been a really good space to be into. And in the HR sphere, you end up coaching people, you end up consulting with people, you end up disciplining people, but you end up speaking, you end up doing a lot of those different things that I was seeing that other people were doing outside of their work. And I realized I was doing a lot of those things for free and that people get paid for it. But, imposter syndrome sleeps in, and then it's like, oh, well, you can't do that because you have to be a certain age or you have to have a certain amount of years of experience. And so you kind of push those dreams to the side of, oh, when I get older or when I grow up, I can do that. But you keep pushing that target. And so eventually you would never get to it unless you just take hold of it and you say, you know what? I'm going to do it now. And so I ended up joining a lot of boards and a lot of committees, and I ended up burning myself out. And so I think that's really cool because that's what this topic's kind of about is career pivots and burnout. And I experienced both of those. So along my little HR journey, I wanted to become that entrepreneur, that solopreneur, and really just do it on my own. I saw that there was a need for like fractional HR services because you have those smaller mom and pops who can't afford HR because they were calling me. How do you do this? How do you do this? How do you navigate this situation? How do you stay in compliance with this? And so they needed somebody in their circle. And so on top of my W-2 job and my board jobs, I was doing that. Or hey, can you come meet with me and train this organization? Or can you come, coach or mentor this person? So I was doing a lot of that and I don't know how I was sleeping at night because it was just way too much. But I took it on because I loved it, but I didn't have balance. And so I realized it was a year and a half ago ish. I was reading this quote and it said, "Your organization doesn't care about you. They only pay you enough to kill your dreams." And that just I'm like, "You know what? They're right. The golden handcuffs, I was paid good amount of money, had a great boss, had autonomy to do all the things, and I had been thriving in my role, but I was looking for self-fulfillment outside of that role, and so I was getting the money and I was getting the fulfillment, but I was burning myself out because there was no balance. And so that had me thinking like, what does that look like to chase my dream? And when is enough enough? Like when do I stop pushing the target back? And so I found out that I needed to lay off 65 of my employees, and that was
Oh,
really hard.
I mean, HR roles are really hard. Let's just talk about this because, you are like that person in the company that has to make sure that not only you're doing the employee engagement piece, but you, at the end of the day, have to execute some really hard things if a company has to make hard decisions, such as we cannot continue to employ 65 people, we need to pivot and we need to be able to find a way to let them go. And then you have to be the messenger. Oh,
Yeah. You learn to realize that that's part of your job, and you
mhm.
learn put it back on them. And so when it becomes like you're going to do this to me or you're going to fire me because of this or you're going to no, I didn't do this, your actions did this. So that's what the difference was in the situation was in the past, I became numb to it of, okay, your actions or your performance or your attendance got you here, but this one was a little different and hit home. And so, um, with
How
that, I
did you
had to
handle that?
Yeah, it was hard. It was hard because first of all, I was the only one there who knew the information, and so I had to walk around every day seeing these people, knowing that in 3 weeks I was gonna have to give them the notice of like, "Hey, you got 60 days." That's the WARN notice. Um, that was hard. And so with me, with my Christian faith, I was able to start praying for them and praying for the situation, but HR is heavy. HR deals with a
Mm,
HR hears a lot. You wear a lot of hats. You're a therapist, you're a firefighter putting out fires all day, you're a policeman, you're a lawyer, social worker. You're a lot of things that you weren't trained for and you just have to figure it out. But sometimes you don't have anybody to go to. Like, you are HR, either HR of one, or maybe you have a subordinate and you can't always go to them and you can't vent somewhere, so you have to find, like, what does your self-help look like? What does it look like to maintain that self-care? And so there is a lot of burnout in the HR space, unfortunately. A
mhm,
lot of there's a lot of things, again, like I said, we weren't trained for, so what I did in that moment of the layoff was put myself in their shoes of what what were the emotions and the phases I would have gone through had I been that person. And so I was able to put in things like, okay, let's get them an EAP, let's get them like resume help, interview help, let's do a job fair. Let me bring organizations to them to help them find a job because it was a lot of hand holding because their mind was stuck on, I don't know what to do and how am I going to feed my family? And so it was a lot of coddling, but helping them through, like, "Let's just not stay here in this space. Let's keep moving forward." But
mhm,
amongst that, I decided that I wanted to leave with them. That was my family, and I didn't wanna stay. I had been there almost 14 years, and it's like I had that old school mentality, and it's a generational thing, and I seem to say that I'm like a hybrid generational person. It, like, depends on the vibe or what it is of, like, what generation I would fall
mhm.
into, even though, like, by my birth certificate, I'm a millennial, but I
Yeah.
fell into the old school, you stay and you become loyal. I always thought I had to stay. And so I asked to kinda be laid off with them, um, and they came back and said yes, and so I was able to, "Hey, guys, I'm right there with you. I'm leaving with you." I was able to be a hope of, "We can do this, we're gonna get through it, and there's another chapter on the other side." So that's kinda how it came to the pivot of, if they're doing it, I can do it, and it's sink or swim, and I'd rather go to my deathbed saying I tried it than saying, "What if?"
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, and I guess that, if you are having to give that news to 65 people and you're in the same boat with them, it is a little bit different than being the one that's on the shore being like, "Yeah, I have to push you out there and, let you know that you have to leave the island," essentially, right? Like, kinda like
Yeah.
not trying to think of Survivor, but, somebody pushing them out there, but instead you're like, "Okay, we're actually all gonna be on the same boats, trying to figure out which horizon we're gonna row to." And I don't know about you, but there's been times in my life where sometimes letting go of what could be can be the greatest blessing in driving me to something that was actually meant more for me. But it is hard because I can imagine after 14 years, there's something that I've heard about. We maybe talked about on the podcast before, but it's called that sunk loss fallacy, where when people have put so much time, energy, and effort, whether it be a job, a relationship, whatever it is. And maybe we know inside that this situation or thing or career or whatever it is that we're doing is no longer serving us, but we can't move forward because all we can think about is the fact that we have given all this time, energy, and effort. And you can start to say, well, I've put all this in there, so, is it all those years a waste? You know what I mean? Like, that's where the rabbit hole of stuck you can really get into, or like you said, "I'm not gonna be able to find anything that's like this," or, "I've worked so hard to get to this role, I might have to restart again from scratch to build myself up." What do you think are the risk of hanging on to those type of thoughts or feelings? when you do find yourself in these situations?
It's definitely a risk reward scenario that
Mm,
you weigh. Um, but like I said, I didn't wanna go to my deathbed what ifing and having regrets, and there's no perfect time. And
yeah.
so what kinda resonated with me was, "Okay, Megan, you're approaching your 40s. If you wait till your 50s, if this doesn't work out," because I'm a planner, like, what is the plan B? And who's gonna wanna hire a 50-something-year-old? Now, age discrimination shouldn't be a thing. It happens, and
I mean,
so
you
and
worked in HR, so I mean,
HR.
I know that we're
Well,
not supposed to do that, but the
you're
reality
not.
is that sometimes, depending on the job, people are looking at, is this
Yeah,
person, can this person fulfill this job? And they may be more than capable. But like you said, it still happens, folks. We all know this. We live in
yeah,
2026. Okay.
yep.
Not saying
So
it's
it was
right. I'm just saying it does happen.
I agree. It does happen, and so that's where my mind went was, "Why not now? Like, what how many years experience do I have to have before I do this?" And so when I decided to leave, it was a sink or swim. And I know there were people, like, rooting for me, and there were people who were like, "Oh, I don't know. I'm not sure." And you gotta remember that's because that's probably their own insecurities of they probably couldn't do it, so they don't see how you can do it. Um, but I had to tell myself to push forward, and one there were 2 people in particular I wanted their support. I was doing it regardless. Um, I was taking that leap of faith regardless, but there was 2 people I really wanted their support, and it was my parents. And, they're very nervous, very old school, and like, "No, you just go to work, and, like, that's a known paycheck." And, I finally looked at my mom, and I told her, I said, "You know what? I got pregnant at 18, and I figured it out. I'm pretty sure I'll figure this one out too." And she's like, "You know what? You're right. You always figure it out." And it was the taking away the paycheck from myself, that meant I had to do it and I had to push forward because that was my livelihood and I had nothing else and no
There was
one
no
else.
other option. Even though you did have a plan B, what was your plan B in case this didn't work?
Well, so, like I told someone else and I was talking to a colleague of mine, I was like, "You know what? I'm gonna go see about I'm gonna leave because I feel like I'm being paid enough to, kill my dreams." I said, "But I can either take my talent elsewhere or I can go chase my dreams." And he said, "You know what, Megan? It sounds like you wanna go somewhere else so they can pay you to kill your dreams too." And I was like, "You know what? You're right. Challenge accepted. I'm gonna do this. There's no perfect time." So I did decide to go chase my dreams of becoming that solopreneur that does the consulting and the coaching and the speaking. The plan B was always I can go back to a W-2 job and I can bring my talent there. And trust me, there's been people coming dangling nice little salaries in front of me and bonuses trying to distract and derail this dream of mine. And it looks great, but there's a thing in delayed gratification. And the delayed
Yeah.
gratification is right now I'm having to go backwards in order to go
Mhm.
forward. But I'm okay with delayed gratification because I know what I'm building now. I know what's going to happen in the future and I can see it and I can taste it. And so it's believing in myself and believing in the vision. I'm not going to let distractions get in my way and I got to keep my foot on the pedal and keep going forward.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, I think there was something also with just saying that, like you said, at least I tried, right? Like, I know there's been tons of things that I've actually attempted before that I had a grand idea. This is how this is going to work. This is what's going to look like. This is, and there's even one thing I think that's coming to mind right now that I'm kind of going through the process of like, okay, I gave this such good effort for so many years. But is this something that now it's run its course and I have to say I have to be willing to let go of it. And so I think there's something, the more you try, the quicker also you try, you implement, you're going to learn something. And then in that learning, each time you learn more and you try, learn, whether it's, I learned that, woo, that didn't work the way that I wanted it to, or wait, that worked really well. The more you do that, the more you learn a few things in my mind. Number one, a lot of times any challenge makes you a little bit stronger, kind of like in the words of Kelly Clarkson. Okay. And also, most of those, like, I'm not gonna meet the worst case scenario. It's not the worst case scenario in my hand's not gonna happen, like, which I just think, like, leaving the earth sooner than I want to would be my worst case scenario, like, is it gonna do that? Probably not, so I'm at least gonna learn something, and if I learn over time, I'm either gonna get closer to where I wanna be, or I'm gonna have enough information that's gonna tell me that I need to change direction. And I love what you said is like, there's a backup. There's always a backup. You can always choose something different. I know this is really scary for people, and I'm not saying that this happens overnight for anybody, but like there's always a backup, and if you know too in your mind that I can live with little or I can live with more, I think and that's not a luxury everybody has of, like, being able to adjust and pivot and live with less. You realize, "Okay, well, then I can deal with this risk." But we all have different risks that we take every day. Nothing is certain, honestly. I mean, I look at other parts of the world where there are people that are living in a war zone right now, and there wasn't certainty of the stability and security. Even for us, I mean, I'm not saying that I'm wishing this on anybody, but, like, things can happen very quickly, so I think sometimes we also have these false guarantees that these belief systems that are like, "This is a guarantee," just like those 65 people who had to that lost their job, and then you ended up being one of them. But for them, they thought that maybe they had been and I'm sure some of them worked there for years, like a long time, like
Like,
17.
longer than I was born. Mhm.
Okay, so for years, I'm like staking that this is guaranteed. And then something happens where an organization shifts or it gets acquired or there's leadership shifts and there's changes in the market and a service line a product line that this business might have had is no longer valid. Whatever the case may be, where they have to shift and do hard things. The truth is that it's not necessarily guaranteed, although we create this idea that, this is what it's going to look like. So you're right. I guess it just depends. If you're listening, you might be like, well, I'm thinking about something and I've been a little afraid of it. And I'm not telling, it's not for everybody. And not everybody should jump out in the great unknown. But I will say that if there's something on your heart, I like what you said. Like, I don't want to go to my deathbed not saying that I at least attempted or at least tried or at least saw what was possible for me. But I do like what you said too. We talk about it here a lot too, is creating a clear vision. And sometimes you have to learn how to become the person that you're meant to be to create that vision and make it happen. So,
We don't grow in comfort zones, so we have to do
yeah,
things
no.
we have to get comfortable being uncomfortable, and that's where I've seen my growth just accelerate to the next level. The more I can challenge myself to do uncomfortable things, the more I find myself growing, and it's not just in my professional space, but it's in my personal space. So, I've challenged myself to do a lot of things that scared me, in order to grow. Like, I was scared of heights, and scared of, like, being by myself, and so I challenged myself to go on a solo trip somewhere I've never been. And while I was on the solo trip, I challenged myself to get in a hot air balloon by myself and that was scary. Okay. But I survived. I mean, it was the cutest little thing because it was all these like romantical little couples and it was just me by myself in this hot air balloon. But it was for me. It was for nobody else but me to challenge myself that, okay, I can do this and I can get over this. And like, what's on the next side of that comfort zone, and it's always growth. The answer is it's always growth. Anytime you push yourself.
Yeah, but it is hard. I think that's another misconception too. I think some people look at people that maybe have jumped out there and really went after whatever their dream or thing that they're trying to create. And I think you need to know yourself and what your values are. What is most important to you? Because what's important to you might not be important to somebody else. And we all have our own paths. But whenever you do jump out there, I think there's sometimes a misconception because I think we always see these people that maybe have seemed like overnight success, and they have no idea some of the hard that person had to challenge themselves through. And it could be mentally, it could be physically, it could be financially, I mean, emotionally, but anything that has ever came in my life that I'm like, man, that what an incredible gift most of the time, I'm not saying that I haven't been given some incredible gifts because I have, but also those gifts come with responsibilities, number 1. And number 2, most of the time it was super hard. Like, I'm not even gonna lie. Hard, hard, hard. And I mean, there's some days it's even like when I go to the gym. Even today, I'm like, "Ugh, I don't wanna do this," or "I don't wanna do that," or "Why would I wanna do this?" Like, I just really can defeat myself pretty quickly, which I think we all can. But I keep showing up because I do know that ultimately this is gonna benefit 70-year-old me, unless I'm doing something that really hurts myself for 70-year-old me, but, like, it's gonna benefit 70-year-old me, and hopefully 70-year-old me can squat down. If I can God willing, I make it to that age, I can maybe still dance. I mean, whatever it is that I wanna do, 70, 80, 90-year-old me. But we have to be able to still do hard things in those seasons for that future, like you were talking about delayed gratification, for that future vision. So
Choose your hard, right?
choose your hard 100%. What do you think keeps people either in places of burnout or just stuck from really making some choices in life that might be more aligned with where they would like to see themselves?
Yeah. Uh, in my experience, their burnout comes from time management issues. Um,
Mhm.
so I had mentioned that I was doing a lot of things, like way too much. And so if I calculated my 40 plus hour W-2 job, plus my 20 plus hours a week of volunteerism and board work, plus whatever other hours of trying to work out and do me, that was a lot of hours. So if I could eliminate the board work and the W-2 job, that cleared my plate to then be able to focus better on my company. Um, but it's because I had no margin. I had
Mhm.
no margin. And I know some people are like, "Okay, well, I don't have any of that stuff. I just have a W-2 job, and it's crazy." And then I get home, and then the kids, and they have this practice and that practice and homework. But it really does stem from time management, in my opinion, and we don't have boundaries. So if you don't have boundaries and you don't have balance, you're gonna have burnout, but you also have to have the bandwidth. And that's something I've been speaking at a lot of conferences this year is having all of them. So in some areas, you may have the capability to do something, but you don't have the capacity. But in your mind, like,
Mm.
no, but I can do this. Yeah, no one said you couldn't do it capability, skill set wise, but your calendar says elsewise. Or maybe you don't have boundaries. So people are overstepping those boundaries. And what I find is people try to put in boundaries, but then if someone edges in on that boundary, "Oh, let me just get my pencil and erase that line and I'll adjust the boundary," and they push it back, but to benefit the other person and not them. And then when something else inches in, they're like, "Oh, let me erase that again. Maybe my line wasn't good enough." And they inch it in. So I like to encourage people when you're drawing a boundary, draw it with a permanent marker and do not erase it. That is your boundary. You cannot erase it. So boundaries, balance, not having the margin in your calendar to be able to pivot and move because stuff's gonna happen. And if you don't have the margin, I mean, I used to not even have margin to go to the bathroom during the day because I went from this meeting to this meeting to this thing to this thing to this thing because I thought I was being efficient with my time, but I really wasn't. I wasn't factoring in rest because, like I'll rest when I die, right? No, that was the wrong framework of thinking. So you've got to have the margin so you can pivot. You've got to have the bandwidth. You've got to have the boundaries, but it's still it's a time management thing. And so I've learned I have to do what I call a red X day. I still have a paper calendar, and in that calendar, I put it in my electronic calendar too because I'm trying to learn to get up with the times. But I have to take a red permanent marker and put an X in that calendar of like, okay, this afternoon, I'm doing nothing. Do not put a networking event there. Do not put gym there. Do not put anybody. That is for me. So I've learned to hold and honor that space and that margin for me. So it's just like an appointment. If you have a dentist appointment, you're going, or if you have a haircut appointment, you're going, or if your kids have soccer practice, you're going. You have to factor that into your calendar of, okay, this is mine. And just because there's a blank space on my calendar doesn't mean that somebody else gets to take it. Right.
Yeah, and I think it's so hard for people that are achievers or that, really would, say that they're super productive people. I mean, I
Mhm.
even find this a challenge with myself, really, truly, because if I you're pa especially if you're passionate about what you're doing, are like all these things that you can say yes to. I've once heard that if you're saying yes to everything, you're saying no to something. And normally, like you said, that something is something about, something that you really need. And I think it's just trying to take that mindset shift as you're talking about this to say, know the re knowing the reason behind why you are permanent markering this line and this boundary in the sand. It may be because, what's valuable to me is time with my family. It could be I'm putting this mark in there because I can't do more than this. And why do you think it's so hard? Because I mean, you were on all the boards and all the things. I know there's listeners right now that are listening to this that are like, yes, that is me. I work. I'm also a mom, also do all this other stuff. And then I also have said yes to volunteer in all these things. Listen, I promise you, our listeners can relate to this. So, why do you think people, for yourself, maybe you can speak for yourself, like, did say yes to all these things? And then what helped you start saying no so that you could have the capacity and bandwidth and margin in your life?
Learning that no is a sentence, learning to protect my yes, learning to have the best yes, because if I say yes to something I wanna say no to, I'm gonna have to say no to something I wanted to say yes to.
Mm,
Um, and so it was a lot of that, a lot of ruthless elimination of hurry. Rest is so important, and you forget that. I mean, when you work out, you're supposed to have a rest day, but when you're, like, in the working out mode, you're like, "I won't rest because that's another." No, it's that balance, you have to, and so I learned, because I did have burnout, because I was on all the things, um, I'm showing up not as my best self to things. To some people, it's to remain relevant. To some people, it's to feel valued or utilized because they may feel underutilized in other areas. So they're going to go where they do feel valued or utilized. But I was going to things and hurrying to get to the next thing, and then going to something else, not showing up as my best self, ready to go to the next thing. But on paper, I was in all these things. And it got to where my fun thing, so I was in a dance crew. We danced in like Mardi Gras parades, Christmas parades, Halloween, and that was so fun. That was my outlet. That was my mindlessness of like, we can go and create our costumes and practice dance, and we had our tribe, and we can dance in the streets during the parades. And it was just, it scratched the itch of me dancing when I was little, and I loved it. But I started showing up not as my best self, and it wasn't
like,
fun
frustrated
anymore.
you have to be there, like, "Oh, I gotta go do this
Yeah, it was
costume design thing right now. I
yep,
need to
it
be
was
doing all these other things. This is pushing me behind on this other stuff that I've got to get done," you know?
it was another thing that was weighing on me. And so I learned, the Bible